He introduced himself as Homeland, did not say what the family name. Also said that this year is in high school, next year will graduate, and said that I have long heard Chen Huanzhu single-minded to write science fiction. This Chen Huanzhu, that is, the dictator Zhu, has the wind of Zhao Shuqing and Pu Songling, although it has not yet become a name, nor has it published a novel, but this persistence is respected. Since he was a child, he had more than respect for literature, and he also wanted to learn from those clever and beautiful red female ghost ants in Liaojia Jiyi, and offered me half of his infatuation. After listening to these words, my heart excited can be on the 9 days of the moon, can be caught under the 5-sheep turtle. For so many years, I finally have a beautiful girl to appreciate me, God, and the old man to me not then off. For a moment, I put my hand around his body and shouted his name. I have to learn those romantic stories in Liaojia. At that moment, my whole body was shaken, just felt like hugging a piece of ice. It turned out that his body was as cold as if it had been frozen, and it shivered through the white dress. There was no mention of such a thing in Liaojia. I let go and pulled my upper body back some distance to see what was going on. He looked at me coldly, his eyes like frozen ice, and his face was awe-inspiring and inviolable. I was secretly ashamed. He was only 17 or 18 years old, hardly an adult. I was too hasty. Then I noticed that on the right side of his face, which was covered by flowers, he had a few thin scars, like cracks in china. "Hey, what happened to your face?" I asked. "It's fine, it's nothing." He was very unhappy, as if I had touched his taboo. I reached out and touched the right side of his cheek, just to confirm the existence of the very thin marks. His cheeks seemed frozen, a little frozen, and his skin and muscles seemed brittle and stale. When I touched it lightly, the skin and muscle on my cheek broke apart, along a thin scar, and fell apart with the touch, revealing the dead white flesh. Although I was originally a science fiction writer, I had a rich imagination and a slow reaction. The fact was already so obvious that I did not understand it, and I reached out and touched the dead white meat exposed, just because I did not believe in any way that a living girl would have the same color as the frozen pork. That piece of muscle, the tentacles are cold. At least I have been frozen at -24 degrees, which is the temperature of the crematorium freezer. I looked at his face, and he looked back at me nonchalantly, but his eyes were starting to look dead white. In a flash of light in my mind, I understood that it was not called home at all, and I understood why he said Xiongkang introduced it. "Are you Jiayuan?" I exclaimed. Sure enough, his appearance was no different from what I had seen in the corridor of the morgue, and Xiongkang was the officiant who gave him the light, and he rolled his eyes toward me, more regular than any living person. "Well, now you recognize me, who did you take me for?" He said it grudgingly, as if it hurt his pride. If a dead man has any pride, at this point, I pushed him away, stood up, and said, "But you are dead, your body is ashes." "Nonsense, if I am not dead. Good to learn what Liaojia Fox female ghost and that is a good living girl should imitate the object." As he spoke, he stood up and tried to get closer to me. "Oh, don't come. Don't come. I'd love 2 more days. For the sake of Chinese science fiction history, stay away from me." "Hey, is you take the initiative to think I died, so what a pity, to waste, not used. This is not a waste of things. Now I offer to deliver the goods to the door. Why did you refuse the visa? Could it be that one day after my death, the world of the living has changed beyond comprehension?" One side, said he, the other side, close, and then close, will cause irreparable losses to Chinese science fiction. Fortunately, I was in a hurry to change the topic. Hey, Jiayuan, you wait first, you look at your own face, what happened?" I said the meter worked. What girl doesn't care about her looks? Even if he's dead and in an urn. He reached out and touched his cheek, wiping away bits of skin and muscle like ash. He gave me a dismissive glance. No big deal, just a steak. Well, you know, right now, I'm covered in ashes. Let's get down to business. Don't waste time. You and I have a relationship. What else? Let's hurry up and continue the glory of Liaojai. Then he lunged at me. I'm not letting a dead man touch the road. Ah! I reached out and pushed hard, shouted, and woke up. My heart was beating like a hammer against my chest, and I was drenched in cold sweat, breathing fast toward the locomotive. I stayed in the dark, with my eyes open, soft as dough. The dream was still very real, just as I was still in the dream, still facing Jiayun, still being watched by him. In that case, I might as well have killed myself. However, the feeling of being watched was so intense that I began to believe I was not alone in the room. I was about to look around when suddenly I noticed a pair of eyes staring coldly at me from above. Looking carefully, I saw Jia Yang's whole body attached to the shed, staring at me almost face to face, and he could fall on me at any time. I could not bear it any longer. A terrible scream, enough to wake up the body in the morgue next door, in front of the flower. I found that I was still in the dark. The surrounding scene gradually cleared, and there was no Jiayong on the shed, so this time I really woke up, just in a serial dream. If I repeat this dream 2 or 3 more times, I shall become a permanent resident of the synagogue of suffering. Think of it this way. When I turned over, I saw Jiayong's face against the window, staring at me. I let out a cry, fell off the bed, plopped in the dark, and finally stood up. Jiayong has disappeared. Outside in the vast dark night, only the morgue building. The window of the morgue was open, and the cypress trees on either side were so dark that not a ghost could be seen. I quickly looked out of the door again, and between the little house where I lived and the urn, there was a large open space where I could see nothing but the pale light of the street lamp in the yard. Further inside, the pine and cypress condenses into a huge shadow, covering the bone hall. I'm first sure I'm really awake, and second, I'm sure the steel isn't an illusion. Jiayong was sure his face was against the window staring at me, and his appearance was much clearer than in his dreams. Did he just have a dream? Is he venting his frustration with me? Is it just because I got the wrong idea when I saw his body? I'm starting to regret it. Working in a crematorium, you have to respect the dead. It's not like I didn't know, so why did I do it? How many lives do I have to deal with a dead man, rather than a real one? But there is another possibility. Since Jiayong is suicidal, if he knows after his death, to see his parents so sad, to think of ending his life at a young age, and not having enjoyed the happiness of life, he will certainly regret it. At this time, just came to a self-loving Chen Huanju to regret, is a poem and a wet dream, for who will resonate? What if he is true and wants to be good to me? Chen Huanju has no ability, cannot find the object is troublesome enough, but also try to get rid of the entanglement of the dead. This is too outrageous. Jingling, the alarm clock sounded, and I was scared, but more make me want to cry is that it means midnight arrived. I should go to the Assurance Courtyard and Lover Furnace Courtyard patrol night. The thought of a young female ghost outside waiting for me to throw myself into the net. I was a moan, ouch, I am young and strong, I do not do why do I come here to work?